Good morning. We have left the outback and finally made it to sunny Queensland. So right now we've just pulled up to Cairns and parked Tilly up at a caravan park just in the city. We actually got a cabin so we can unpack, get all settled in and relax for a few days. But if you guys think this is going to be a regular video about us enjoying Queensland, you're wrong. We've got some big exciting changes happening and some updates to share with you guys. But first, we gotta give Tilly a bit of a clean. Okay, all clean. Feels so good to get all the red dust out.
Well, I'm sure you guys are wondering why we've been cleaning Tilly so much after our adventures. Well, the truth is we have found a new owner for Tilly. So the lady's gonna come and pick her up today, and Tilly is gonna go off with a new owner on a new adventure across Australia. So this is where our trip has come to an end. It's been a lovely time. We've enjoyed our trip so much in Tilly. She's been super reliable and not anything wrong with her other than a few flat tires. So it's been absolutely lovely, but that's the end of our trip.
Well, just like that, we're homeless again. Living out of hotel rooms and not having a home base.
Don't get me wrong, there are lots of benefits of being out of the vehicle as well. We obviously have a lot more space to stretch out. Oksana can sleep in awkward positions with her legs, which she likes to do. So it's not all bad and gloomy. We've definitely enjoyed our trip in Tilly, as I mentioned before. Sad to see her go, but also super happy to see her go to a very wonderful new owner who is going to take her on multiple trips.
And I know a lot of you guys are wondering why it happened so sudden. Maybe to you it seems sudden, but for us it was actually never a plan to have Tilly for too long.
Yeah, I mean, we had considered potentially keeping Tilly for a year, 2 years, depending on what happened with COVID. So our plans are always to remain flexible. And depending on what was happening, we were going to adjust. So if the world was in complete shambles and we couldn't get back to Canada because COVID was going bad, then we would potentially stay in Australia longer, potentially, ship Tilly over to New Zealand, do a New Zealand trip, something like that. So it was always to remain flexible. But because of how things are going in Canada right now, which is very good.
Things are looking up.
Yeah, and Canada's doing good, then it kind of meant that we could end our trip here and head back to Canada and visit family and friends.
And we always wanted to complete a half lap, and we're almost there. We're about 1,500 kilometers from returning back to Brisbane where the adventure started.
But we've done that before.
And we have done a good chunk of Queensland before because, as some of you know, we actually used to live in Brisbane for many years. Yeah. We had done a lot of adventures in Queensland before, and we actually just wanted to put the car up for sale and just see who bites, what kind of offers we'd get. We did not realize that the car would be bought within a day of listing. And that just sped things up, and the new owner was really excited to take Tilly and was really excited to have her ASAP. So we decided that it just made sense for us to leave the car here in Cairns and fly down to Brisbane and finish our trip there.
So that's what we got. So it's about 2 hours before we have to go to the airport and take a flight down to Brisbane, where the trip all began. So
Full circle. Let's get going. Hello friends, well, we have made it to Brisbane. We have been staying around Brisbane the last week, staying with friends, enjoying the city that we once called home.
About 5 years ago.
This is where it all began. But, as all good things always do, our time in Australia has come to an end.
Womp womp womp.
It was always our plan to travel around Australia and then eventually make our way back to Canada. And we have decided that now that we've completed our half lap, made it back to Brisbane.
Most of the half lap, not all of it.
Made it back to Brisbane where we started the lap and said goodbye to Tilly. It is time to pack our bags and head back to Canada.
To visit Benji.
Because Benji has been very lonely sitting on Vancouver Island for the last
Since December of last year.
9 months now. So it is time to go back and reunite with Benji. So we've made our way to Mount Gravatt Lookout. It's a beautiful spot in the city overlooking the Brisbane skyline. Thought it would be a good way to say goodbye to this beautiful spot.
Bye bye.
Tomorrow we're gonna jump on a plane and start our journey back to North America. We'll tell you all about that then. Well, it is time to say goodbye. We are at Brisbane Airport, starting our journey back to North America. Masks on, and let's go. Well, we made it to Sydney, overnight layover here, and then tomorrow we're off to the US.
All right, one last thing to do before we depart. Pre-departure COVID testing. So luckily here at Sydney Airport, they have testing right in the terminal. In Brisbane, it would have been a big pain in the beep. But here they do a 1 hour or a 4 hour turnaround. So let's go get tested and get out of here. COVID negative, we going.
Well, we are back to Canada and back to my parents' place, safely isolating after a big journey from Australia. So, we know you guys have a bunch of questions, so we're going to try to answer some of them. Leaving Australia.
So the process was quite easy when leaving Australia. The biggest thing that we needed to do was to get a COVID test. We had the option to get it in Brisbane or in Sydney. But we decided to do it in Sydney because it was a much simpler process of actually getting a COVID test done at the airport. And they had a 4 hour or a 1 hour return time test, which was quite easy and very pain-free and wasn't too expensive.
The other thing, obviously, about leaving Australia is that most Australians cannot leave Australia at the moment. So we are lucky. Obviously, I'm not an Australian citizen. I am a Canadian citizen, and Max is a dual citizen, which is really the only reason why we've been able to come into Australia and exit Australia. And we timed it perfectly because had we left 2 days later, it would have been a lot more challenging to exit the country even with a Canadian passport as they were implementing new rules.
So for our flight, we booked a flight back through the US just because of the availability of flights. There were no direct flights to Toronto, so we could either go with Qatar Airlines or Emirates through the Middle East, or we could go via the US. We decided to go through the US because we can go through the US because we're Canadian, and also because that opened up another possibility for us, which was to get vaccinated. So upon coming back to Canada, we would not have been able to get vaccinated until after we finished our quarantine, which would be 2 weeks. And then we'd have to set an appointments and wait around. And then we'd only be single dose vaccinated. Meanwhile, LAX has a very cool program that upon your layover into the country or into the airport, you can go down, register, and get a Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine pretty much within 20 minutes upon leaving the baggage claim area. So we decided that we would do that, and it was actually a benefit for us to fly through LAX because of that.
And now we are waiting out our 2-week period, and once that's over, along with our quarantine, we'll be fully vaccinated and free to travel. Of course, nowhere in Canada is mandatory to have the vaccine to travel yet, but it's just a responsible thing to do. We've always wanted to get the vaccine. We recommend everyone gets the vaccine, whatever vaccine is available to you. So as soon as we could get it at LAX, we jumped on it. And there's been really no problems so far. We've had it for about a week now. I felt a bit of fever, I guess, the first
small fever,
12, 18 hours, but then it was gone and I feel great. So highly recommend it. So now that you guys are watching this video, we are obviously still in quarantine. We'll be in quarantine for 1 more week. And then what's next?
Back over to BC and to Benji.
We are heading back to reunite with Benji the van and to continue exploring Alberta in BC. That's where we sort of left off last year when COVID restrictions and everything sort of shut down that part of Canada.
And cold weather.
And cold weather.
That was the biggest one.
And we couldn't safely travel anymore, so we decided to put that on pause. We thought it was going to be a very short pause for a couple of months. Ended up being a very long pause.
8 months.
But now that it is safe to come back to Vancouver, BC, Vancouver Island, we are looking forward to exploring that part of Canada and sharing that adventure with you.
And we got some cool things planned, don't we?
Very cool things
So
planned.
stay tuned. Tune in next week or the week after, whenever our next video is.
Make sure you press the bell button to get notified about our next video, because going forward, we're going to be a bit more flexible in our videos. We're not going to be releasing them weekly because that's just now how life is. So make sure you get notified so that you never miss a new episode.
All right. See you guys later.